Well, hello and welcome to today's episode of the Power of Your Mind podcast. You're listening to episode number 139. I'm Victoria Gallagher, Law of Attraction hypnotist and number one best-selling author of Practical Law of Attraction: Align Yourself with the Manifesting Conditions and Successfully Attract Your Desires. I'm also the founder of HipTalk.com and HypnoCloud apps, which gives you access to over 500 hypnosis recordings right in the palm of your hand. So be sure to download that app from the app stores. Today, I have a very special guest with me, Bob Doyle. Bob Doyle is best known for his contribution to the global phenomenon film and book, The Secret, as a law of attraction expert. He has been teaching these principles through programs, live events, podcasts, live streams, coaching, writing, and even virtual reality since 1998. He is driven by his passion for creative self-expression, and his work is heavily focused on helping people decide who they want to be and how they want to express themselves. Recently, Bob's attention has shifted from the metaphysical aspects of the law of attraction or reality creation process to a more grounded and biological look at what controls our experiences in our brain. In addition to his law of attraction work, Bob is a serial entrepreneur, has been a voice-over artist since 1985. He's the host of The Bob Doyle Show, which is more of a variety show where Bob showcases his other outlets of creativity, including music, computer animation, virtual reality, and more. And today, Bob is going to be sharing some of his insights on rewiring your brain for manifestation success. So welcome to the show, Bob.
Hi, Victoria. I forgot that you had the novel length version of my introduction. I always try to remember to tell people, oh, don't read the whole thing. It's just too much. Just choose what you'd like. But
well, I loved it. I felt like, it really it just really gives you the proper
hey,
kudos of who you are.
as long as you were
You deserve
riveted
it.
and on the edge of your seat, that's all I care about.
I really was. I
Okay,
really
then
was.
that's fantastic. Great. I'll make it longer.
Even longer next time. Yes. So it's been about a year or so since you were on the Power of Your Mind podcast.
Good times.
Definitely, definitely. And so welcome back to the show, I should say.
Well, it's great to be back.
Yeah, and this time around, we actually have the show in a couple of formats. We have it on the podcast, but we also have it on YouTube. So people will be able to tune into YouTube and see your amazing green couch that you're sitting in front of or
That's
on
right.
or wherever it is.
And I get to maintain a smile for an hour.
Well, I didn't mean to make it difficult.
I always smile. It's not difficult.
Well, anyway, thank you so much. So recently, you were in another movie besides The Secret. You were in a newer movie called How Thoughts Become Things, which is also just another amazing movie I got to see not too long ago, and a little bit similar to The Secret, I'd say, but a little bit different.
Yeah.
Quite a bit different. It has the
It,
same idea of talking about law of attraction and how our thoughts become things, right?
it's meant to be a more practical, sort of updated look that's less metaphysical, less kind of woo-woo, less like no magical thinking, which is something that a lot of people did take from The Secret. I mean, there was a genie in it, for crying out loud. So it's like, I get it. I get why people would walk away from The Secret thinking that this is some like magic wand thing to wave. And of course that is not how it works. And you know this, but it just creates a different set of problems when you're trying to explain it or teach it to people. And so this particular movie is focused more, we're talking more about the brain, and we're talking more about like how your thoughts will move you into action, like where all of this takes place in the physical. It's not to negate any of the vibration stuff, and that is talked about in there, but that is a minimal part of the conversation. And the release of the movie coincided perfectly with where my message had been going, as you alluded to before. That's exactly what I'm focused on, is more the rewiring than the other stuff. So it is about creating the life you love, but it's meant to be more of a how-to, where some people felt like The Secret maybe didn't tell you enough about what to do or how to use it. That's one of the conversations going on out there.
So it's a little bit more practical.
Right. That's the idea. Like practical law of attraction, you might say.
Exactly. Yeah. So I love that kind of thing, because it almost like, when The Secret came out, like you said, I mean, so many people got the woo-woo version of it because that was what they needed to do to stimulate excitement and let people know that, hey, you've got the power to ultimately, take your thoughts and turn them into things, ultimately. But, not everybody had that awareness that was available. And then when they tried, just kind of like closing their eyes for a couple seconds, and the Mercedes isn't out in their front yard, then they're a little bit disappointed. And so this kind of breaks it down into a little bit more of the science of what you actually have to do.
Right. And to set a more realistic expectation, because the reason that I'm focused on brain wiring now more than the other stuff is because we are creating reality in the moment that our brains are giving it meaning. So the brain is the deciding factor. How are we processing this input that we're getting from our daily life? What meaning do we make of it? And then given that meaning, how do we feel? Do we feel like we are successful? Are we happy? Are we, all these things that we're going after by utilizing the law of attraction? Our brain ultimately decides whether or not we have achieved it or not, way more than the external stuff, because we all individually make different meaning out of the same external stuff. So it's a very personal thing.
So yeah, so true. So tell us just a little bit, just bring us back, for those of my audience who, I don't know, maybe they're not law of attraction people yet. Most of them are, but just tell us a little bit of your background. Like, why did you start teaching law of attraction in the first place?
I got in this industry, if you will, very sideways, because my intention was always to be in broadcasting, be on the radio or TV or something, using my voice and doing that.
You have such an amazing radio voice. You do.
Nice of you to say.
I love it.
And I still use it. I still do voiceover, and all of that is a part of my life. But that's what I thought that my main focus was going to be. And when I got out into the real world, meaning I did some radio in Athens, Georgia, which is a small college town, and got to do whatever I want. So I thought, this is great. I can't wait to get into Atlanta to do all of this. Well, you get into Atlanta and you're new. They're like, you're not doing any of that. You're going to read these cards. And I'm like, okay, I get it. I got to work my way up. But it was taking too long, Victoria. I didn't have the patience. And so I did. I leapt out early, and that just started this bouncing around from all kinds of different careers. I started my own web design company. I tried to start an audio production company. I got into various types of network marketing, which I was a disaster. And so, and because I felt like so much of what I was doing should have worked, like I should have been more successful, that's what got me looking into the metaphysical conversation at all. Like, there's something that I'm not seeing here. So that's when I started learning about meditation and visualization, and the very concept that you could even create your own reality. So there was a lot that was clicking, for me at an intellectual level. Like, I can read it and go, oh yeah, I get this, but I still wasn't having, any results with it, until I finally came across the information that was more about the quantum physics aspect of it. And my main takeaway from that, for the purposes of this, is that our thoughts, our beliefs, our whatever they are and wherever they're lurking, have an impact on our experience of reality. And so at that time, I was all about, why can't I make more money? I was saying a lot of things about what I wanted, but my internal conversation was, this is going to be hard, and I'm always going to be in debt, and it doesn't matter if I like what I do or not. I just have to do it. So, because that's what I learned that's the wiring I got growing up watching my mom, who was in that situation. So learning that, I was able to untangle all that. Make a long story short, I had my aha moments about the law of attraction. And, because of all those different career things I tried, I learned a lot about how to package up a program and share it. So I just turned around and started sharing what I knew in the very earliest versions of my Wealth Beyond Reason program, which grew over the course of time when I changed the conversation about who I was being in this endeavor. And it exploded into this huge thing, which was later found by Rhonda Byrne. And that's how The Secret happened. And that started a whole other thing.
So, did your Wealth Beyond Reason, did that come out before The Secret?
3 years. Yeah.
3 years
That
before The
was my
Secret.
first project. And it started as just like 5 other people's ebooks that I had worked out deals with the authors and said, hey, this is what I'm trying to put together. Would you mind contributing? And they did. And then I shared a couple of little recordings of like a meditation and then sort of a lecture based on what I'd learned so far. But I was very much the facilitator of the information and had not yet claimed myself to be like the expert for whatever reason. However, that's a distinction I learned early on. And it's a huge part of what I'm teaching now. And it always has been, but now more than ever. I claimed who I was going to be starting then. So I just changed my conversation from one day I'll be fill in the blank to I am an effective communicator of these principles to as many willing, open minds as possible. And that was a very important caveat because I knew I did not want to spend my years arguing the law of attraction or debating it. If other people want to do that, that's great. I'm here to teach it to the people who are wanting to do it. So once I made that declaration, that's when I started getting these more downloads, for lack of a better term. And that's when the program exploded into being, 99% my content or what came and 1% everybody else's. So
I love that. That is so inspiring to me because it reminds me of a few years back before I wrote my book and I was dabbling. I mean, I've always dabbled in law of attraction, but it seemed like I was talking about it to people more and more. And I made that declaration. I said, I teach law of attraction. I teach people how to manifest what they want. And so it's kind of cool to hear that I'm on the right track.
It's imperative, and not enough people do that. They all are in the one day I'll be when these circumstances are met. And I'm just, it is the biggest message. And now I can point to more science. Like why are we saying this? And that's the whole problem that I've run into with the law of attraction conversation in general, is that even people who want to believe it have a problem with some of the woo-woo or the more invisible aspects of it. Like, okay, but why do I step into being now? How's that magically going to do anything? Well, let's forget about the whole magic. It changes the wiring of your brain. The person you are now is a result of basically being programmed on complete autopilot, but your brain is wired with a very specific network of neural pathways that, because of how they're wired, because of everything that's input, you make a certain meaning out of your life. Right. And because of that meaning, you will or will not take certain action, period. It's going to come down to how do you interact with the people that you meet and what action are you taking or so on. But it starts with this, who am I about this? So when you claim who you're going to be, who you are, and it is in alignment with who you'd really truly like to be, and then start acting in alignment with who that person is, not when you get all this stuff first, but right now. You take whatever action you can right now, you're going to begin to create the brain wiring that is consistent, that will cause you to move in and take action consistent with that person. That means that you're going to get the results of that future person. It's not magic. You don't have to think about it like that at all. It's because you're now, because of who you're being, the way that you're interacting with the world, you're going to get different results. And it's so freaking logical. Yes, there's all sorts of cool law of attraction, vibrationally stuff that's bringing these circumstances to you for which you will, or that you'll make meaning out of. But you don't even have to think about any of that stuff. Just be clear on who you want to be and decide how do they be different than who I'm being right now. And that's what my work is all about right now, is helping people to define who that is, why they want that, and then to identify the gap between who they're being now and who they'd have to, and what, who they are in this vision of themselves. And let's just start to bring those future actions into the present and watch what happens.
I love that. I 100%, this so resonates with exactly how I think of this. And, it is about like, I mean, if you want to have this life, this house, this business, this relationship, whatever it is that, you don't have yet, it's just because you're not the person that's in alignment with those things. So who do
That's
you
right.
need to be in order to have that? And so how do we get our, like sometimes I feel like, I think we're all at different levels of our manifesting abilities.
Hmm.
Like I've been at the level, personally, I've been at the level where now I got into alignment with manifesting my dream house.
Hmm.
Yay! But now I want to get to the level, and I mean, I'm always a little bit shy about sharing this, but I want to have a multi-million-dollar business.
Sure.
Okay, who doesn't? But sometimes a little shy about admitting that to the whole wide world. And so I feel like I'm having to somehow like just beat this into my brain. So how does a person rewire for that next level
Well, we can
of
use you as an
manifesting?
example. We can use
Please
you as an
do.
example
Like, let's
because
do it.
that multi-million dollar business, the result of that multi-million dollar business is going to be multi-millions of lives changed. So your
Yes.
goal can be that can be your
Mm-hmm.
stated goal.
Yeah.
And it's just implied that the multi-million comes out of that. Like if your goal is to help 2 million people do whatever, that's going to translate into a multi-million dollar business for you. So if that feels better for you, because as well as I do, that if you're carrying any weirdness about even stating your goal, then there's some hesitancy about taking full ownership of it.
Yeah, well, it's
Like
just
there's
like
some,
that. You're so materialistic. Like, what are people going to think about that? But
yeah,
it really does mean, I mean, that I'm doing this. I got out of a business that I could have, retired early and all of that, as a pretty wealthy lady. I got out of that to do something that would change the lives of millions
yeah,
of people. And
yeah.
so that's my goal, really. That's my
And
intention.
And there's nothing wrong with the multi-million dollar part being your goal. But if you feel odd about it, then I would just say that's something to look at, or you can reframe it. That's all.
Mm-hmm,
But
mm-hmm.
it's not just you. It's a lot of people are hesitant to claim, and it's not that I don't coach people to go tell everybody what their goals are, because there's a lot of dream killers out there, and that
Mm-hmm.
you don't want to do that. And it's way more important though. It's just you get clear on who you want to be, and you get to use this ultimate reality creation machine called our brain that comes complete with imagination and passion and all sorts of creative power to really rehearse and fine tune and like decide, if I start being like this, let me run through some scenarios of how my life will be different. Like like when I'm coaching people is to say, what are your first steps? Well, okay, so you want to identify who that person is. So what you can start doing is just noticing during the course of your day right now, where are you triggered in a way that you just would rather not be? Like, what's coming up for you in these situations? It may be very predictable. Like, every day when you walk in to see this person, all your stuff comes up. How would you rather be? What would the ideal version of you do in that situation? Or would they even be there? But you get to imagine that first and really try it on. And by doing that, the brain science is clear. I mean, your subconscious, it doesn't know that it's not real. You're activating the same stuff. So by rehearsing this powerful version of you, and you get to try it on and try it on, because nobody's grading you. If this doesn't feel good, this isn't quite it. But once you nail it, then you get to rehearse it and rehearse it and rehearse it just whenever you want to in your spare time. Bring on the full feelings and see yourself coming out on the other end as this new improved version. And then your body is already wired to do it next time it comes up. I mean, there'll be still a little layer of, oh, this is the first, you'll know that you haven't actually, but you'll have rehearsed it and played it through. You'll be much more likely to take that action, which begins the universe's new response to the new you. And it's going to start the very first time you do that out there when someone can react. It's going to cause a chain reaction of different. And now it's just up to you to own that from that point on.
So the steps are to rewiring your brain. The steps are that first you claim who you are, who you're showing up in in this world as. Then you do a mental rehearsal of of how your day might go, how, all of the people that you might be interacting, all the people that you're influencing, just taking yourself step by step, day by day through being that person. And you're just, and yeah, because, and we haven't really talked much here. We haven't brought up because we've talked about rewiring the brain, but are we talking about the subconscious? I mean, is that, what we're
It's
what we're
all,
dealing with?
yeah, I mean, yes, the subconscious is at play, but I'm just really talking about whether the wiring, where the neural pathways are branching into your conscious or subconscious. It ultimately doesn't matter. It's interesting to know. The point is we can change our brain. This is what I need people to know. And it's and look, I'm not the only one talking about this. There are a lot of people out there who've been talking about this for a lot longer, but I'm seeing more and more people. Just like the law of attraction, there was this wave of people, even before The Secret, but certainly after. But that started. Like, I just feel like this is where we are in the conversation, taking it out of just the isn't it cool energy stuff and making it so that it's not, while not denying any of that, but bringing it down to a level where we can point and say, look, we have proof your brain can change. Think about how you learned anything. Think about just showing them how they became the person they are. And they can come to their own conclusions and see that, of course, yes, I learned this from my mom and my dad, and this from my school. I had these experiences, and I didn't know. People don't know. They were not taught as children that we can evaluate the input and go, is this meaning I'm giving this, just because they make it mean this way, does it serve? And we don't know that. But now as adults, we do. The information is there. We now know that if we can become conscious, and that's the main skill set, that's like the big step one, is to notice it in action. Notice your current wiring in action, and then learn to become conscious in that moment. If you can learn, that's a freaking superpower, because it gives you the choice in the moment. And that's because there's other things that happen in a moment of upset. Our brains produce a lot of very strong chemicals, which, by the way, are highly addictive to us. And we're at their mercy for the most part, unless we are super conscious. Because every part of your body will say, this is the appropriate way to respond, even though it doesn't feel good. But the conscious part can detach, have no judgment, have no feeling, no emotion, and then begin to choose something else. But it takes something to do that when your body is filled with chemistry.
I will share a little vulnerable part about becoming aware of some limiting behaviors that I just recently have started to redo. Because I am probably usually one of the most positive, high vibe, high energy people you'll meet. And I do all my homework, I do all of my brain rewiring and everything. But then it'll happen, and my husband and I will have the nasty little exchange, okay? And then in the past, up until recently, I would just hang on to it. And I would just hang on to the negative vibe. And of course, during that time, and I couldn't figure out, like, why do I have resistance to all these other things? Well, it's because of that, that negative energy that I'm just hanging on to. And it doesn't hurt him, just only hurts you. So, there's all kinds of, I think, situations like that where people, there's just that thing you keep doing and you're not aware of it. You haven't, brought it out to the conscious. And then not only are you not aware of it, but then if you become aware of it, you might just say, well, screw it for now. I'll do that next time.
Exactly. And that's why, literally, that is why 93% of people who take on personal development of any kind will fail, because transformation always, successful, long-lasting transformation always means always as a result of your brain having been successfully rewired, which takes more time than people are giving it. And they get a program that says, hey, this in 3 days or 3 weeks or 60. We don't know. There's no way any program creator can tell you how long it's going to take for your brain to go from the wiring that it is now. It could be ridiculously complex and like it always is, to
Mm-hmm.
something more that's more in alignment. But if you are persistent
Yeah.
and you know why you're doing it, you will get there because you have to. It's freaking science. It's not like, well, I'm not talking things like it's the law of attraction, because people who don't believe that can go, yeah, whatever. But this is where we can point to it. This is how it works. You change the input on a consistent basis, the wiring will change. You will literally change who you're being. And if you don't believe it, you have changed. Look back in your life. Think of the person you were 10 years ago, and then 20 years ago, and then 30 years ago. There's behavior, there's ways of being, things that I rationalized back then. I'm going, how did I ever think that way? Or how could I have ever be? And that's how crazy foreign it is when you rewire. So however real everything seems to you right now, and you'll defend it, and your ego and your wiring will try to keep it this way. When you do it, when you successfully get to the other side of this wiring, you will look back at this time that you are rationalizing and justifying and pointing to all the evidence and go, how did I ever think that way? Because you've literally become a different person with those memories.
Yes. No, and anything too, I mean, that we've ever like learned how to do. I mean, we learned how to type. We learned how to drive. We learned all of this stuff, this automatic pilot stuff. This is what we do now with any type of behavior. There was a point in time where you had to actually think about how to, go left, go right, put on the brakes, do all of that stuff. Now you can talk on your phone and you can eat, a hamburger or whatever you eat while you're driving. And it's the same thing, though. You had to consciously think about it. And that, that got integrated into our automatic wiring. We're wired to know how to drive now.
Right. Everything we've learned that's been worth learning came with discomfort and what we call failure. But it's not failure. It's just feedback. Oh, I can't do it this way. I'm going to try it this way. I can't do it this way. Try it this way. If people approached walking and talking the way they approached personal development, everyone would just be rolling around on the floor because they would give up way too soon, right? It's like, but we've been conditioned by society or program creators or whatever to think this is going to be quick, and so if it isn't, they give up and either blame the program or they blame themselves, neither of which is productive. So it's, I'm about saying, look, this is a real thing. Transformation is real. You can truly become whoever you want to be, but here's what's going to happen. And it's going to result in, but to do that, your brain will have to change. So what's the fastest way we can actually change your brain? Taking 2 years to learn law of attraction techniques is clearly not it. Some people, I've been studying law of attraction for 20 years and I'm still waiting. And it's like, okay, stop studying then and let's just get right to it. Let's do what we have to do. And all that stuff you've been studying will just happen in the background, fall into place. You'll have a whole new appreciation for it because it will have worked. But if you're a person who defines yourself as someone who is constantly seeking, then that is what you will be. That will be your actions. You will never take the action to move you into the finality of anything because you're always in the process of it. And that's not woo-woo. That's just logical. If your brain is that you are a seeker and that you're waiting for the next, then that is the action you will always take.
Well, and you haven't committed. Because, if you're basically saying, if you're trying these techniques and you're saying, well, I tried this for 30 days, I tried this for 6 weeks, I tried this for 6 months.
Yeah.
Even if you say, I've tried this for 6 months, okay, how bad do you want it?
Exactly.
Eventually you will, it takes time sometimes. I mean, if you're 50 in your 50s like I am, it takes time to undo some of that old unproductive wiring that you've done. And
right.
So why do you expect the wiring to take any less time? Now, you could probably speed it up.
Absolutely. Because we're conscious of it, for one. Number two, and so we can use our imaginations to amp up the emotion and all these other things that sort of speed that process up. Plus, we've got all these great tools like hypnosis and EFT and all these release techniques to get us through those points where our emotions get us stuck in the progress. So it can happen a lot faster. But you're right. It's like, okay, so you spent 50 years getting to where you are. You're not willing to spend 6 months, a year, 2 years so that the rest of your life can be exactly what you want, or you're just fine with just going the rest of it exactly like this.
Yes.
It's the mindset is, it's so, they just don't, if I think if they really believed that they could have it, maybe they would do it. And that's why I'm trying to show people, like, look, and to extrapolate through logic that if you change this behavior, don't you think you get a different result? Yes. And then just keep extrapolating that so they can see that if they just did this, they will get there. And hopefully that will excite them enough, because otherwise it just seems like some magical dream that they're putting on this vision board thing that they saw in a movie, and they're just waiting for the magic to happen. But if they can see it's a logical progression, and then they can, then knowing about the law of attraction, all that, they'll see the magic unfold. They'll appreciate the synchronicities that are coming up now, not because they forced them to come, but because of who they were being. It just, this is how it works, folk. And then because you're being who you want to be, you're going to take the action instead of going, oh, I don't know. I see, maybe it's a sign, but I don't know if I should take the action. How do I know? I got to call my coach.
Yeah.
It's a
It's
big
so
difference.
it really is. And you start to really look at the things that might also, because sometimes, isn't this true, when you start to rewire and you start to really get committed, and sometimes things look like they're starting to break down, they're starting to fall apart.
Yeah.
But that to me that is such a great sign. I actually get excited now when
As you should.
things
As people should. It's
yeah.
not, again, because the breakdown, as you refer to it, it is, all it really is that things are changing. Energy
Mhm.
is changing. Now we call it a breakdown because we're making meaning out of, oh, this is going to be a problem, or this could be construed as negative. It's all, breakdown has its own vibe to it. What
Yeah.
it is it's an evolution of the events. It's just, but we give it meaning. So it's much better to choose celebration, because it does mean things are happening. You said you wanted something different, right? Well, this can't coexist with what your vision is. You can't coexist. So you've got to be willing to let go of whatever and let it fall away and go through that. You can, suffering through it is optional.
Mhm.
But if you just use your logical brain, this is exactly the situation I need to change. So of course it's going to fall away. And it's not your job to determine how it's going to fall away, or determine that it has to fall away this way so that everybody feels good every step of the way. Because that's just not how it works either.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, just a perfect little example of that. I've set a goal for my app, and so I decided to sit down with my developer and give him, some, like, here's what I need from you. And he's like, well, I suggest you find another developer. And I've had this developer for like the last 3 years, and so I'm kind of addicted to, to him. So ordinarily I would have been like, oh my God, that's awful. I'm like, no, no, no. The universe is listening to me and saying, you know what? You got to get somebody else on the team that's going to take this thing to the next level.
Right.
And boom, I wrote down, who I'm manifesting exactly, and all of these people are coming out of the woodwork trying to apply for this job that
Yeah.
I created, that I wouldn't have created if I didn't have that little moment of, like, kind of a little bit of like, ooh, that's kind of scary.
Right.
But it is a little scary. It's a little scary, but you got to, like, trust it that's, things are
But
moving.
that's a great example of, like, people don't want to let go of the comfortable thing, even though every other sign is it's time to move on. This guy, luckily, and so we get into upset and all those other things, but luckily you did not do that. And so you saved a ton of time, you saved a ton of frustration and bad energy. Just, I'm sure it was a whack at first, but now you're going to get someone who is going to get it, and has that enthusiasm that you want. So this will be fun for you.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
really will. It really will. So I'm excited about that. And so tell us, how can we start to, like, how do you help people to rewire their brain? How can people find out, more about this marvelous way of, getting ourselves more clear about who we are so that we can move a little faster into what we desire.
So one of the things that has changed a lot after The Secret is I went from being just kind of putting stuff out, hiding behind a microphone or whatever, to, being with people more. And that really evolved over the past few years into coaching, group coaching type environment, which I really, really love. And it's actually my very favorite way to coach people because of the group dynamic and the support and the accountability and just a million other reasons. And then to be able to have a personal relationship with people, I think, really, really helps too. So, but now with this rewiring conversation, we're putting together a support system just specifically to coach people through that. So I've got this balanced living challenge, which I've done several versions of over the course of the year. We're getting ready to launch it again. And depending on when people listen to this, it may be already going, but it is a sort of an immersive daily accountability program, for lack of a better word. But it's basically, you're going to be getting coaching from me every day. It's the accountability that you need. And it's all about the consistency, because people cannot be treated, and it's about bringing it into every hour of every day, learning to be aware. This program is about developing that skill set that I talked about, to become aware in the moment, because all the power happens there. That's where you have the freedom and the space to create something that is not based on chemistry or high emotion or limiting beliefs. The challenge is to give you all the tools and the processes so that it becomes an automatic way of being, so that you're not constantly doing programs your whole life, but you have now developed the skill to reprogram yourself however and whenever. But starting during this 45 days. So that is not, as you and I are talking, it's not out there yet. It's coming. It will be easy to find at balancedlivingchallenge.com at that point. Until then, if people want to kind of get into the rewire conversation, at least how I'm talking about it, and also establish a connection so that I can let them know when the challenge is going and all of those other things, I do have a webinar out there. It's a free webinar about rewiring. And it's meetbobdoyle.com/rewire. And they can go and they can ask questions and I'll answer the questions. So that's a way for us to get into communication. Other than that, I'm everywhere. It's so easy to find me.
You are. You are surprisingly easy, with everything. You're so accomplished with all your books and being on, a celebrity on movies and, but you are so surprisingly, accessible. But, this is a wonderful thing, I think, that you're helping people to move through, because there's so much confusion out there. And really, you just bring a lot of clarity. And you are, definitely somebody who exemplifies, practicing law of attraction and manifesting things. You last year manifested your soulmate, and clearly, you're just, manifesting all these amazing opportunities for yourself. And, so you're just a perfect person to teach this information. You explain things so clearly, and you really have this genuine, sincere desire to help people, and that's what I love about you.
Well, that's nice of you to say. It's as long as the process is fun. And so that's one of the things that we, it's really, so many people take this work so seriously that they bring that heaviness into everything they do. And so, goofing around and having fun and laughing is super important in this process, especially if that's part of who you'd like to be in the future. So we want to, again, bring all that into the present moment. So yeah, I'm hoping that this type of, just from my experience, I know that it will take consistency. It will take every day. You will go up against your wiring. And that's why the support, it's absolutely necessary to have somebody on a daily basis reframing things for you and keeping you in action when you hit that inevitable limit of your current wiring. So it's normal and perfect and good that you get stuck up against a wall, because that's what you're wired to do. So, but the problem most of the time is people do not have the support. They don't have the tools. They don't have every single day, right, to get it through. And it only takes a couple of days of not doing that before you're right back to your old habits and rationalizing everything and saying that program didn't work either.
Oh,
forgetting
trust
the,
me. Yeah. I mean, it is so much about the consistency.
yeah.
Consistency, I just really think is so, I mean, there's a lot of components I think are super important. You've got to get that brain rewired. You've got to believe, you've got to be committed to it. You've got to be in integrity with, living your best self, your highest self, being in alignment with who you really want to be. But, so to you've got to get your brain rewired, and the only way to do that is through consistent consistent action, consistent thinking, consistent believing.
So
Everything
yeah,
has to be consistent.
and let me throw this in because I can't believe I didn't even mention it. But you and I were actually talking before the recording about sort of the rewards system, rewarding ourselves, what
Yes.
humans like in terms of rewards. And so the challenge is all set up around points, so that all
Mm.
the tasks that you do every day that would normally in another program just be a, hey, be sure to do this, they may or may not do it. You get points for every task you do, whether it's listen to the morning meditation or post a win in the Facebook group or take a breath to do, take a moment to take 10 deep breaths. These are all things that I'm asking people to do every day. And if they do it, and make an entry in their journal to make sure they're consistent, and it's stuff we can check on if we needed to. It's
Mm-hmm.
not like we just total honor system. We want people to change their brains. So anyway, but the point is they get these points, and depending on how many points they get over the course of the challenge, they can win certain things that would be money otherwise, and that kind of stuff. So it's just giving them that daily yay, I did this, with a nice little sound effect, just everything that gives them the yay, I did something.
Yeah, it's like
Because I know that works for
gamifying
me.
the
We're gamifying the
gamifying.
whole process. Yeah,
Yes,
gamifying
and
the whole
it's
thing.
so true. I mean, rewards are the key to habits. I mean, and that I'm listening to the book Hooked right now on, I don't know if you've ever read that before,
Nope.
but they're literally talking about exactly what we're talking. I mean,
Okay.
that is, we want to make law of practicing these techniques. We want to take rewiring the brain and make it habit forming. It
Yeah.
needs to become a lifestyle. It needs to become a habit.
And we want the reward, we want the result to be its own reward, but realistically,
Mm-hmm.
we need those little.
Little breadcrumbs along the
That's
way.
exactly. Here's a little something for you. Here's a little something for you. Oh, good job. This one's worth 10 points. Oh, I'm totally going to do that. Right.
Yeah.
That kind of thing. So I know that stuff works for me like a freaking charm. I just can't,
Mm-hmm.
I love checking things off lists. It's the way I
Mm-hmm.
get
Me
things done.
too.
It's the
Me
way
too.
I'll take the most menial task that I've got to do that day and put it on a list. And then I know it's going to get done just so I can check it off.
Just so I can
So
check
that's
it off.
why I know
Yep.
that this approach to this it's going to up the percentage of completion, which is, it's huge in our industry. People just don't finish the programs because of, it comes down to, they come to the limits of their wiring. So this
Yeah.
program is all about expanding the wiring. They're definitely going to hit their limits, but they're going to have hopefully the incentive and support and the rewards to keep going so that they can get to that next level.
I love it. That sounds so exciting. You
I'm
guys
excited.
got you guys have got to go to meetbobdoyle.com/rewire. Go do it
Yeah,
because
that'll at least establish our connection, because I won't be talking about the
yes.
challenge on that, but at least
Oh,
at this time. But that's
okay.
about rewiring. But then they
Okay.
will then learn about the challenge as a result
They'll
of
learn about the challenge by
the
connecting
appropriate time.
at the appropriate time. I love it. I love it. Well, this has been very delightful and insightful and inspirational and all of those things that
All
I
those
always
words
get.
that start with I.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, except for delightful started
Oh,
with a D,
well,
but D like Doyle. I'm goofy.
it's good. It's good.
It's
It's better
good.
that
It
way. Yeah.
is. It is. So, any I don't know, any last words of wisdom that you want to leave our listeners with, just to kind of end it on a
So if they were going to
ta-da?
take a practical walk away thing they could try to start this process of rewiring, I would invite them to take on noticing when they get into upset. It could be about anything, and it could be at any level of upset. Just begin to notice when your chemistry changes and now you're not feeling good. And this is what I'm inviting you to do, and it may not be easy at first, but just to step back mentally and think to yourself, this is my wiring, this meaning your reaction. This is my wiring. This is not the truth. Now,
Mm-hmm.
that's going to seem really wrong at first because, of course, it's the truth. See, all this stuff, this is the only way I can make, but it's how you're making meaning out of it. So it is a habit to get into, but it's basically the process we're going to want to get everybody through in the challenge and everything else. It's like noticing, I'm upset right now. I'm angry right now. I'm worried right now. I'm anxious right now. I'm stressed right now. Any of these, I'm feeling hurt right now. I'm feeling jealous right now. I'm feeling whatever it is.
Impatient.
Impatient right now. I'm feeling frustrated right now. To stop and go, this is my wiring. This is not the truth, right? Whatever it is I'm deciding about all of this, that this is a frustrating situation or this is whatever, it's just, that's the meaning you're giving it. And when you
It's
can
my
do
own
that,
filter, how I'm perceiving this.
that's right. It's the meaning you're giving it to somebody else who has no connection to it. They're just seeing you flail papers around. There's no meaning whatsoever to it. You give it all the meaning. So if when you can do that, that's when you would then try on, well, how else would I be? And if you've rehearsed it, right, if we've gotten you into the practice of daily rehearsal of all of that, you'll know what to do in that moment. Once you say, this is, once you're able to stop and go, this is my wiring. This is not the truth. So I'm going to choose a different way to be because it's all just what I say anyway.
Yeah. Love it. So stop whenever you feel that energy shift and tell yourself that this is not the truth.
This is my wiring. This is not the
This
truth.
is my wiring, and then you're set for making another choice about
and
it puts you at choice.
And I'm acknowledging that's way easier said than done.
Mm-hmm.
And people, when they first try that, will be like, Bob Doyle doesn't know what he's talking about. This is freaking truth. Look at this. Right. So that's a normal reaction. I don't take it personally.
Well, and it's part of the rewiring process. I mean, that is, it's like a pattern interrupt. You're just
Pattern interrupts are, that's what it's all about.
Yeah.
It's all about that, getting the pattern interrupt and then choosing something different.
And you do
And it
that
gets easier
enough
with time, just like
times.
everything else we learn. It gets easier with time,
It does.
and so, but you got to go through that tricky part where you're falling down, learning to walk, or not getting the language right, or however many times the guy tried the light bulb. You just don't quit. You just keep going because you know why it's going to be so great when you get there if you've done the work ahead of time to decide how great it's going to be.
Yeah, 10,000 times, you guys. You don't probably won't have to do it that many times. Most people don't. I mean, so Thomas Edison was like a great example for
If you can
us
make it
all.
that important, like I always used to coach people, you got to say, if you can get to the point where you can say, why must I do this? Like, it's not an option. It's not like it would be cool. It's not just it'd be fun, but like, why must I do this? If you can get that vision to that state, however you do it, that becomes a different, you've crossed a line that you cannot go back.
Yeah.
And so then you become unstoppable. But most people don't do that. But people just intuitively know I have to learn to walk. It's not optional for me to give up on this, right? So if we had that same resolve about our goals, we would get there.
Absolutely. Oh, that's so inspiring. It's just so inspiring. It's always just wonderful to get back in touch with the whole idea that, like, just whatever you do think about. I mean, they simplified it in The Secret, whatever you think about, you will bring about. But, you lay the groundwork on the steps that you actually do need to take in order to get there. And it just begins with you guys going to meetbobdoyle.com/rewire, and he's going to give you the goods, you guys. Okay.
The goods.
The goods. So thank you so much for being a guest on Power of Your Mind podcast. And thank you, listeners, for being a listener and a subscriber and a sharer of this information, Power of Your Mind podcast. And thank you.